when did all this start happening in your mind to get these initiatives, not so much reacting but innovating in your mind?
Well, that's really why we built the R&D Center in the first place. It was to stay ahead of safety and of advancements, and fortunately, we don't talk a lot about that now, although it's a continual centerpiece of what we do at the R&D Center. But it's also the world that we live in. There's so much technology that is going around in every industry, and so for us to embrace that in a smart way, hopefully, we always have to, when we're doing things, make sure that we don't just put technology or innovation in without regard to what things cost the industry. Team owners, certainly the track operators. So whatever we do, we have to balance that. But clearly, we're declaring big things that we may not get all of them accomplished exactly the way we set out to. But I think we're putting the resources behind it to make these improvements and align the industry to make racing better and more exciting, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
We'll hear, and then we'll go to Alan and Bob after that.
A question to Brian France, Wolfgang Monser from Germany, Rennsport Press Agency. The question is a little bit technical. Hopefully you can answer it. You said earlier that the Generation 6 car was created to make races more exciting, if I understand it correct, for the fans. Nevertheless, according to the press release, there is some details mentioned that, for example, the hood and the deck lid is made from carbon fiber. So carbon fiber is a very exclusive material, especially in Europe. It's very light. Nevertheless, it's very, very expensive. From the cost reduction point of view, would it not be better to choose another material?
Well, we balance that. I mean, we balance the weight, the strength of it for safety, and we balance, we balance that. So that is it's something we looked at, it's something we chose. But the enhancements that I'm talking about that improve the racing to keep our promise of the most exciting racing in the world often aren't going to be things that cost team owners or teams additional money. It very well could be in the packages that we create. Downforce and tires play a big role into that, and so on and so forth. And the goal is real simple. We want to see the closest competition that is possible. That's the goal.
Yeah, and just and afterwards, when you get one-on-one with Robin, you can get more detail, but a little bit more in depth on us choosing to do a composite material. We get the fact that steel is cheaper than carbon fiber, but in today's world, with the technology of building carbon fiber, it's not that much of a bridge as it used to be to start with. But the way we've introduced this piece is this is a standard piece that no one can alter. Steel, if we left the steel deck lids the way we had done in the past from our experience, then this new car would be a generation of evolution again. But we standardized the deck lids with carbon fiber. We went to a third party to produce the rear deck lid. The manufacturer has to submit the hood. And the aerodynamics around the 2013 or the Gen 6 package is critical with these components in it. So Brian was right. There is a balance that we have to reach. If our goal is for the car to be safe but very competitive, there is a balance against cost, and we have to balance all of those out. But get a little bit more detail on this piece in particular, because there's a good story behind the cost as well as us managing the sport to keep 43 cars on a very similar playing field.
Alan Cavana, NASCAR.com. Going forward, how will you measure or judge the success of the Gen 6 car?
I think we'll measure it by lead changes. We'll measure it by how it races. We'll measure it by how the drivers feel about it, and knowing that not everybody will always love every rules package or thing that we do. That's for sure. But we'll look at it very simply, we'll everything is designed to have closer competition, and we'll see. And I'm quite confident that I know we're gonna make improvements. But by the way, that's not that's not a new thing for us a new issue for us to consider. That's always job one, past safety. It's always job one. It's just today, we're just, as I said, we're using a lot more science. And so we're going to get answers to questions that, that where we used to use a lot of art and judgment, which we still do. But I think this new mix of the way we're looking at our test, at the packages that were, as we drew up the car, it was all for that in mind. And I think the benefits will be there.
Bob? And then we'll go over to David after that.
Bob Parker, Sporting News. For Brian, it's expected that the new car will kind of increase manufacturer lobbying for rule changes throughout the year. Is that something you're trying to avoid, or do you want it for, while controversial, it creates buzz? Well,
I don't think we ever enjoy a lot of good lobbying. That's for sure. But look, that's part of it a little bit. There'll be a little bit more of that, which we anticipate, to give the manufacturers, the look that resembles their cars. Obviously, we had to, go away from the complete common template that really would have defined the old car. So that goes with the territory a little bit. But having said that, we're also working closer with them than we ever have, and and they're really excited about that, and that's good for us and good for them.
Let's go over to David, and we'll go down here, and then over to Dustin.
David Careville, NASCAR.com. Gentlemen, how different is this new proposed drying system from what we have now with the jet dryers?
Quite a bit, visually and operational. It's uses compressed air as opposed to jet engine. Is designed to expedite, obviously, the removal of water. We're using compressed air and heat, where the jet dryers were simply designed around blowing and depended more on hot air. The new system depends more on compressed air. The evolution there's a few faces out here that remember when we used to dry tracks off with just a fleet of vehicles going around a racetrack or dragging tires behind pickup trucks. And then someone came along with the jet dryer that expedited it quite a bit and served its purpose for a long period of time. But in today's world, with the expectations of getting the show done and getting it on, there was a high priority placed by Brian on the rest of us to come up with a way that we could expedite that, and Robin and the folks at the R&D Center responded to that and come up with ideas, and this one seems to have quite a bit of validity to it. So appearance-wise, it's considerably different. It's a gain of pipes and behind the pickup truck that air is being pushed through as opposed to a jet dryer.
Stan Creekmore with RPMTonight.com, Mike, right here. The fans come for entertainment and to see the racing. You walk up to a tower to do a lot more. That's a job for you, to watch more than just an entertaining race. Will the Gen 6 car increase what you have to do over the first part of the season, or will it lessen some what you have to do?
Well, our hope is that the driver of the Gen 6 car increases more of what we have to do. But the visualness of the Gen 6 car, combined with the driver's skill and talent in what they do, will make the show exciting for us in the tower and everybody in the grandstand and the folks at home watching it on TV. But from operating a race from the green flag to the checkered flag, it doesn't matter if it's a Gen 6 car or a tractor and trailer. That all comes out about the same. But the expectation is the visualness of this car and the attractiveness of it as it relates to the manufactured brands, as well as the aerodynamic package that the team has put together around this car will produce more exciting opportunities. But it relies on the drivers doing what they do more than anything.
We'll go right here and then over to Dustin and Lewis on the other side.
Greg Engel, Examiner.com. For Mr. France, with all the talk of the new fan engagement center and all this emphasis you guys have been putting on social media and trying to reach fans in various ways, how do you find, because it's still important to have the eyes on the sets when it comes to TV contracts and the revenue, and you know, when numbers are down from people watching, I know there's a lot of concern across the industry. How do you balance the social media and what you have going on the internet? Because if fans can watch a race, so to speak, on the internet with all the things it can do now, they're not going to watch the TV set. How hard has it been to kind of balance between the new social media initiatives and the traditional television?
Oh, I don't think that it's hard to balance that at all. I think one drives the other over time. I mean, the idea is that you're engaging your fans in different ways to take in, to go behind the scenes or whatever it is, their favorite driver, their team, their track that they like to go to. You're able to in real time communicate those things with our fan base. So it should strengthen the relationship with our fans, who will obviously ultimately the best thing is to go to an event. The next best thing is to watch it on television. And if it doesn't drive and promote those two things, then we obviously wouldn't put the focus on it, but we do.
Dustin, Lewis, and then back to Jim in the middle.
Dustin Long, SportsIllustrated.com. Brian, this will be the 10th chase. How do you feel that has reshaped the sport, and how do you respond to those who question if the chase has consistently delivered the attention that maybe you intended?
Well, I've said before that I was surprised that we didn't have in those 10 years some more, tighter battles going down the stretch in the last few events. And we've certainly had some very memorable, including the first one, including last year, which was amazing. And then the year before that was Tony. So we're getting back into what I always thought would be the benefits of a chase, because what it really has done for me, though, as a fan, because we're fans too, is it shows that the drivers and teams, when it's all on the line, can really elevate their talents. And you saw that with Tony in that incredible run 2 years ago. You certainly saw it with Brad getting on a roll and competing. And you never had those moments to judge a driver in the old system. And I like that, and I like what that does to teams. And we certainly like the wild card, by the way. That we thought that was, and that came from one of our drivers, actually, in the driver-owner meetings that we'll start later on today, getting that feedback. So we really like the emphasis on winning your way in, and so on. I think that's exactly what we want.
Let's go Lewis, Jim, and then back in the back row in the blue. Lewis over here.
Lewis Frank, Reuters and AutoWeek.com. Mike, how satisfied, in regards to tech inspection, how satisfied are you with the new laser measuring system, and is the goal to get rid of the aluminum templates or metal templates altogether?
Not altogether, but the laser system, I think, helps us maintain the accuracy of the car and shows the rest of the garage area that here's what everybody else's car measures up to be. And so I think it's mostly a gain on inspection as opposed to a replacement on inspection. But I think so far, and you can ask John later on in the breakouts, but I think what we've seen and what we've used so far shows us that it's the right direction to go. And it more often, or more importantly, though, it gives NASCAR the ability to have the credibility of showing everybody else in the garage area that these measurements on everybody's cars are the same.
Jim Utter over here.
Jim Utter, Observer for Mike. So at the two tests and already on the media tour, we've heard several comments from drivers who believe that the quality of the racing will be better with the new car. I just wondered, from your perspective, have you seen enough on-track testing or testing that you have done yourselves from the NASCAR side to give you confidence that the promise of that seems to be coming forth that will actually transpire on the track?
Yeah, I don't know that you ever see enough evidence until you go racing, but certainly the amount of testing that that NASCAR has done with the teams to get prepared with this car and work on very specific areas to promote side-by-side racing at tracks other than the super speedway in particular is been intense. I mean, on the computer, in the wind tunnel, at the race shops, at the R&D center, and at the racetracks. There's never been as much effort put into a car to get it ready to go racing. And the testing that we've seen in Daytona, the testing we've seen in Charlotte shows us, and the voice that you hear that from is the most important voice for the drivers to say that we think this car is going to offer up the best racing we've seen. It's got us all going in the right direction. So we expect to see that. But Brian mentioned earlier, and it's been talked about, that it's a really, really strong start with the Gen 6 aerodynamically and the chassis and all the rules and regulations that go along with it. But it's also, from experience, we know that while we may have closed the gap on the effort that we have to do once we see it racing, there are probably still things that we will tweak along the way to give the drivers the what they want a little bit of, but give the fans what they want mostly. And if it requires tweaking from our part, we'll do that. Somebody asked earlier about the manufacturers with the different looks and everything. That's a good thing. But science and technology gave us the ability to do this with the Gen 6 car that we didn't have in the Gen 3 and 4. We didn't have that technology to build a car that looks and is extremely different in appearance, but comes out aerodynamically the same. But it wouldn't surprise us to very early in the year to see manufacturers come and lobby about spoiler dimensions or something that is traditional in our sport. But so far, all the indicators and the voice of the sport is telling us that we're on the right track.
We'll go back there, and then we're going to, about 5 more after that, we'll go to Viv, George, David Newton after that, and wrap it up.
Mike Neff from frontstretch.com. This is for either of you. We hear from time to time from fans that the length of races is a little bit too long. Last year at Martinsville for the late model race, they invoked heat races to set the field for a feature event. Has there been any thought of adapting a heat race format for the Cup Series where the total number of laps raced during the weekend would be the same, but you would race in heats and then set a feature that was shorter in length?
No, we're not considering heat races at the Sprint Cup level. We have shortened events. We obviously have changed our qualifying procedures around, and we will continually look at the format in terms of, mostly how long or short an event can be, and that's obviously balanced against what the track operator believes his customer base wants to see, not just what the broader television audience or whatever might. It's everything we do. It's got to be balanced, but we're watching that.
Viv?
Viv Bernstein, New York Times, for Brian. Part of the promo earlier, talking about the Gen 6 car, talked about the racetrack and the showroom arm in arm again, and I'm wondering if the COT brought you too far away from that relationship, and if it harmed NASCAR, and if so, in what ways?
Well, I think it did. I think it was, looking back, you're always, 100% accurate when you get to look backwards, right? And I think that would be fair. That we certainly didn't intend to do that. Intended to try to make racing better, and where costs were a huge thing, as they still are today. And we did significantly bring costs down, and safety was a big thing, as it is now. We significantly improved that. But it would be fair to say that in doing those things, we weren't as in step as we are today with the manufacturers. And so it wasn't just that, too. By the way, I mean, they obviously had, huge business issues going back to 06, 07, 08, 09, that they fortunately have really rebounded on that. So a combination of things, but this is going to, and also not just sort of getting the car in terms of, more like the showroom cars. That's it's also working closer with them, and because there's other things that are now much more important to each of the car manufacturers that maybe wasn't as important 10 years ago. Things like innovation. We've talked about a glass dashboard. That's coming, and we'll balance again that against cost and against what they want. But that's what things that are going to be with ever increasing fuel mileage, CAFE standards for them. They're using a lot of technology to obtain those goals and reach their goals, and they want to use the NASCAR relationship and the platform to help develop some of those, and we're going to be a very willing and good partner in doing just that.
Okay, we'll go George, David Newton, and we'll wrap up with Marty, and then we'll go to the breakouts. George Diaz over here.
Yeah, Brian. George Diaz with the Orlando Sentinel. Moving forward, are you pretty much looking status quo now with the three manufacturers, or what are the prospects of bringing back a fourth down the road?
Well, they're a lot better now than they were a year ago because there's an opening of some sort. It's still very difficult. But no, my hope is, and I know there are a couple of big manufacturers, and there always are. This is not breaking news. There's always somebody who has an interest in at least understanding the NASCAR opportunity. And so my sense of it is, over time, that we will have a fourth manufacturer, and that we'll have to see how that plays out. But sure, we're certainly open to it, and and there's not much past that. I don't think it would be very difficult for a car manufacturer to get enough quality teams to make their program work properly. But four is certainly manageable, and we're encouraged that at some point that we'll attain that again.